Boom! We are live, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome to the Life as a Chad YouTube channel. And I thank all of you for being here wherever you may be. And of course, however you may be listening. So last night, I went with some fellow ortho bras and watched The Sound of Freedom, one of which is pretty well-known YouTuber. No, but some fellow ortho bros, and it was an excellent time, and we went and watched The Sound of Freedom. And so I thought it would be a nice way to give back if I provided my own review of said movie. I do believe that I will have some spoilers, not a ton, but some. So you're forewarned regarding that. And just kind of give you my thoughts regarding what I saw in the movie, what it made me think about, and things like that. But before we get into reviewing The Sound of Freedom, I want to ask you guys to please consider hitting that subscribe button, like, comment, share, support a fellow king out. And without further ado, let's get into this. By the way, guys, the YouTuber I'm talking about definitely does have a decently large channel, and I appeared on one of his channels a while back on an interview. He's a very good friend of mine. And like I said, I went with 3 other ortho bros, and it was really good to have. It's in general, you guys know I'm big on this. It's very important to have that camaraderie. And I don't want to make this all about that, but on one hand, we've discussed the importance of being on your purpose, which I will get to with regards to this movie, how important it is as a man to be on your purpose and to put in the hours, put in the work, and really get after it. On one hand, that is true, but it is equally true that it is very important to have people around you that are intelligent, that are driven, that can make you think, and in some ways are like-minded, in some ways not. I used to think that it was good to be around people, a good amount of people who were not as like-minded. But the reality of the situation is, as you become older, you just kind of naturally, especially if you're conservative, you just kind of are naturally around people who you don't see the world the same, especially where I live. And so when you are envisioning how to spend your private time, being around somebody that you're going to totally disagree with is not enticing. So it's good to have that camaraderie. It's good to be around like-minded individuals, like I said, that are intelligent, spiritual, all of the above. So that aspect of the experience was excellent. The first thing I want to start with is just kind of give an overview of the movie and how I came across it. So I had actually gone down a Mel Gibson, I guess, tunnel, in which I was watching videos where he discussed exposing Hollywood and some of the corruptness of Hollywood, and it ended up leading me to a video where Mel Gibson and some other folks talking about Mel Gibson referenced The Sound of Freedom with regards to Mel Gibson. So I was already considering watching the movie myself, but then a fellow ortho bro brought this movie up as a movie to go see, and hence we went and saw The Sound of Freedom. I did not know very much about this movie, hardly at all. I watched one preview, looked at a few reviews, saw who was in it. That was pretty much it. I didn't know a ton about this movie. Come to find out, at the end of it, this movie is based off of a true story, which is important because this movie was very focused. It was a very focused movie, and which it had to be for a reason. I mean, the topic was so so horrid and uncomfortable that it had to be focused and had to stay on point. But the reason why I bring that up is because, one of my friends brought up that there wasn't a ton of mention of God in the movie. God is probably referenced about 4, maybe 5 times, less than 10, definitely, in the movie. The central character is a Christian. He makes reference multiple times as the reason that he does. The motivation for what he does is twofold. One, he has a family, a very large family with lots of kids, what seems to be a very loving family. And again, this is based off of a true story. So the main character is the main guy, which I will pull up here in a moment, who it is based on. So that's one of his motivations. He kind of empathetically puts himself in the position as a father himself with some of these other families that are going through these really, really, really tough times. The second primary motivation as to why he does what he does is because he's a Christian, and all children are God's children, and they deserve to be protected. So that is his kind of MO. He works for Homeland Security. So Homeland Security only has so much reach in what they can do. And that's kind of, I would say, the background that I want to lay for the movie. So here we have it here. Sound of Freedom is based on the life of Ballard, who left the Department of Homeland Security about 10 years ago and founded a group that works with local police to catch child sex traffickers in other countries, often by staging elaborate sting operations that it captures on video, which they do in the movie. I will explain that. Tim Ballard, let me go ahead and pull him up here. Totally like a all-American type looking guy. This is Tim Ballard here, in which the movie is based off of. By the way, I believe Angel Productions is who did this movie. So there's just some photos of Tim Ballard. So, I like I said, I don't want to give away too much of the movie, but some of it will be spoiler alert. The movie is very difficult to watch because while it does not ever cross the line, which of course it could not, I mean, that would be illegal to do so. It basically does foreshadowing. It goes all the way up to the point, to the line, and kind of puts curtains over it. And in one scene in the movie where, the little girl, it has been trafficked, and she is in some, like whorehouse or prostitute house of some sort. Literally, the scene is the curtain being shut, which I thought was an extremely good shot and extremely metaphoric, because the movie throughout the entirety goes right up to the line, and then the curtains are drawn over it, and you are left as a viewer to kind of sadly envision what happens next, or kind of speculate what happens next. So again, the movie itself, like I said, very, very uncomfortable. And I think it took a ton of courage to make a movie like this. I think it took a lot of courage for people to watch a movie like this. In the end, the movie, by and large, is pretty much I would say pretty much a PG movie. With, if you take out the implications of and the context of what is actually occurring, I would say, as far as like actual nudity or like swearing and things like that, I would say it's a PG movie. That would be my guess. I mean, I'm sure we can see for ourselves. But in a nutshell, the movie follows Tim Ballard as a Homeland Security agent, and he basically finds a really popular pedophile immediately, and that really popular pedophile led him to find there's a family in the movie, a single father with two kids, whose two kids get human trafficked. And how they get human trafficked is this very attractive woman, especially in the movie. She is extremely attractive. In the movie, she appears very professionally. She's able to go to these, she's able to operate in these third world countries dressed very professionally, very sexily, and promise the world to the families of the parents. Now, some of the kids, I'm sure, did not have families. They probably were able to just scoop them up. You know, that's how it likely works. But in the context of the movie, the two kids have a very loving father, and she approaches the father by showing him a brochure of a very professional kind of young, like what appeared to be a young modeling agency. And, you know, kind of promising that if, especially the daughter, but it ends up being both the son and the daughter, if the daughter does this, it could lead to other things, such as a music career, such as an acting career, things like that. And the father is told by this very bad woman, which we don't know at the time. He's told by this very bad woman that he or no parents are allowed to enter into the room in which the modeling is occurring. Because they don't want, basically, because they don't want helicopter parents. They want to be able to just do the shoot and be done with it. The father ends up returning about, however, you know, he ends up returning late at night, only to find the room completely empty. And that is how the journey begins. The next part that I'll say, and this is probably where I will end it as far as spoilers go, is the son is the first one to be the first one to be found due to the early pedophile that they were able to catch early on in the movie. And the son is able to be found based off of that kind of interaction. And Tim Ballard is basically a very ingenious individual who, you know, is willing to camouflage himself in this very, very dark underworld in order to get to saving these kids. And it's kind of a means to an end. Now, in the movie, he doesn't go so far to where it's like, you know, overboard. But like, for example, the first pedophile that that they arrest, he basically makes that individual think that they have befriended each other, and he's able to get that guy doing his thing in the act, not the like the action of the selling of children, that aspect. And so they have him dead to rights, and that's pretty much it. And the main premise is of the rest of the movie is Tim Ballard on his expedition and his purpose in finding the daughter and the sister of the little boy who is found early on in the movie. So here are some of my thoughts on the movie now, and I'll provide a grade at the end. Number one, I believe that this movie comparatively probably had a light budget. It probably did not have as big of a budget as some of these big Hollywood movies do. So they likely had to do more with less. And I do believe that you can kind of see that in the movie. It's not, the movie is not super clean. The dialogue is not the best in the world. It's not terrible, but it's not, you know, it's not like Goodfellas or, you know, like or Game of Thrones or anything like that. But it suffices. At times it was a little choppy, but overall the pace was pretty good. It had a decent amount of action where it wasn't overboard. And as I mentioned before, commonly the movie would tiptoe right up to the line and really kind of make the viewer kind of envision the rest and make the viewer think. And I think that they did well. I mean, there's multiple reasons for that, but primarily when you do that, you make it hits home with the viewer more, because then it kind of allows the viewer's mind to spiral. And that's just the nature of making art. Is there are times where the best thing to do is to leave it to the viewer's kind of own mind. And so I think the movie beautifully tiptoed right to the line and, pulled the curtains, and that was that. There wasn't as much action as I thought there was going to be. Like I said, the amount ended up being sufficient to me. One of the only critiques that I had with it is at times it was kind of hard to understand, for me at least. It was kind of hard to understand what Tim Ballard was saying. I don't know if it's because of the accent. I don't know if it was a sound thing. I don't know if it was the actor, trying to do a super deep kind of like cowboy-esque kind of portrayal that made it hard to understand. Because sometimes when men talk very deeply, it's deep, but it's soft, and it's hard to understand. So that would probably be my only critique. But overall, the story was what the story was. There was only so much leeway. As I mentioned before, there was not a ton of God that was mentioned, but overall, this movie was not centered around God. God was included in the movie, but this movie was primarily about bringing awareness to the incredible underbelly of society, in particular in the West and in these third world countries, and bring that to light and really show what is going on. That was the primary focus. God in the movie was used more as a primary motivator, rather than like a Passion of the Christ, where God is the focal point of said movie. So that's, if you're going into the movie expecting this to be totally and unequivocally a Christ-centered movie, I would say that it is not directly that. It is very much indirectly that. So I'm gonna play in the background the trailer while I'm discussing what this movie made me think about, and it's quite a few things. Let's start here. During the movie, one of my ortho bros said that it is shocking because a lot of this movie takes place in a third world country and South America, which South America really is like a second world country where, or it's not country, area, continent. Geez, I sound like one of these girls on Fresh and Fit. And he said it is stunning that most of the world, or most of the world, or part of the world, it still lives like this. And of course, what he was talking about, and I totally agree with him, is, the huts, the lack of medical attention, the lack of law enforcement, the lack of paved road. I mean, everywhere. The South America is a wasteland. It is like the Wild Wild West. Very uncivilized. And I couldn't agree with my friend more when he said that. And really, before he had even said that, I thought to myself, man, and this was a major thought that I had throughout this entire movie, was, man, we are, you look at how these countries are depicted in this movie, and how they live, their culture, how they conduct it. And of course, it's not all of them. It's not even necessarily a majority of them. But you think to yourself, dang, and we are allowing people with those cultural inclinations to come to America and bring that mindset, or not even necessarily the mindset, but the okaying of that type of culture, because the only reason why a culture like that is allowed to persist in South America is because the people allow it to be that way, meaning they are okay with the world, with their country being that way, and they bring that same mentality to America. And it's no wonder that America is starting to really have quite a few third world problems that really did not exist a lot until the last 10, 15 years. So that's number one. That was a major thought that I had throughout this movie was, man, I cannot believe that we are allowing people with this mindset to come over in droves to America. And, just going down that line of thinking, this type of stuff, human trafficking, which is why in the liberal media, they push back so heavily against this movie, because really things like mass immigration, lack of border security, war, things like that are what allow, in large part, things like this to happen. That's what former President Trump would discuss. I think he's still president. That's what he would discuss, which is that when these individuals go on their journey, what do you think is happening? How do you think these families are paying for when they don't have any money? How do you think they're paying for their country to be taken across the border? Well, oftentimes they're paying with bodies, either through sexual means or literally giving one of their daughters, their sons, sometimes multiple, to these cartels, to these gangs, as payment to get them to where they want to go. You think of the Russia-Ukraine conflict. I guarantee you, in an effort for the Ukrainian citizens to flee Ukraine, and due to the support that they believe that they receive from America, which in large part they do from the news, that they believe, see through the news that they receive, they think that they can just come to America with open arms, however that may be. And I promise you, oftentimes America is saying, no, we cannot allow any more to come over, this and that. And they're sending them over in containers, shipping containers, things like that. I remember watching The Sopranos the other day, and this was a big thing when 9/11 occurred, or the aftermath of 9/11. In The Sopranos, there's a scene where Tony basically figures out that shipping containers, that over 90% of them are left unchecked, meaning that over 90% of the containers that enter into America are allowed to do so without receiving any sort of review. So major world conflicts are what allow this to happen. Now, I realize that the Russia and Ukraine conflict is different, and why they flee to America is different than, say, folks from Mexico, or some of the countries south of the United States. They are different issues. One is more of an immigration issue. One is more of a war issue. But nonetheless, this is how things occur. And it's not just for kids. It's not just with kids. It's also with adults too. I know from the Asian countries, when women are not married by the time they are like in their 30s, they are often sold to go and work in Western countries as sex workers. So this is a major issue. And at the end of the movie, it said, at the end of the Sound of Freedom movie, it said that somewhere around, I think it said that human trafficking is a $9 billion industry. That is absolutely insane. A $9 billion industry. And it said that slavery now exists more than it ever did throughout human history. Just absolutely wild. And, you know, we can talk about the reasons for this occurring, whether it be technology. You know, I know I've seen in the past that Instagram, Facebook, and some of these smart platforms, their algorithms basically encourage some of these people with these horrific mindsets to be able to go to exactly where they want to go through the suggested algorithm of these smart technologies or smart social sites. And social media has connected the world in a way that we have never seen before. And it has, in particular, it has connected first world individuals with third world individuals like that. Whereas you look at any other point in time in history, that was very difficult to do. And only very few were willing to do that. Now it connects them like that. And now you're having these third world countries seeing, you know, people in the first world, how they live. And it's just also, my point is that it's also readily accessible. And you're starting to get this interconnectedness that you never had before. You're starting to get this kind of global jealousy for how others live and their desire to have that type of life. They're willing to do anything to make it happen, which leads me. So that's my main, that was the main thing I thought throughout the movie, which is I cannot believe that the same country that basically allows for this to occur on a grand scale, that we are allowing those citizens of those countries to come to America pretty much unscathed, unchecked, no questions asked. That's a problem. But the next thing that it really made me think about is evil is real. And this is probably the biggest reason that I believe in God, is when you finally realize that evil and that bad is a real thing in this world, it allows you to see the light much easier, and it allows you to see God much, much clearer. And the evil that it takes to do what these individuals do, whether it be the trafficking, whether it be the full-blown pedophilia, whatever the case may be, the evil that is required to do that is on levels that is just, it's incomprehensible. And that is why it is vital for there to be a resurgence in the Christian community, because sadly, especially in Protestantism, and this is why I'm no longer a Protestant, there has been this push for a while now where you will commonly hear from Christians, mainly Protestants, saying, well, who am I to judge? Who am I to judge? And it's like, well, who are you to judge? Well, you're one of God's children, and you know what is morally correct. If you believe in God, then you believe that he is the light, the truth, and the way, that he is the answer, that everything is derived from him. And that's really the problem, is there's too many Christians who believe in God partly. Like they believe in evolution, but they believe in God also. They believe in this like warped kind of modernistic Christianity where, you know, they're kind of, I remember one time I had a professor in college who was a philosophy, he taught the philosophy class, and he told me that he was a scientific Christian. I had never heard of it before that. And we need to have a resurgence in America in particular, but the West by and large, where we are confident in the book that we hold dear and the God that we say is it. But too many Christians nowadays are just willing to just let evil just pass right by them, whether it be because they tell themselves that, well, the world's just going to end anyways when it is. So, you know, me doing this doesn't mean a thing, whether it's for that reason, whether it's for the reason I said before this, which is, who am I to judge? Whatever the case may be, we need to build back a strong foundation of an answer in which the people can look to. Because the reason why people are so lost in the West is because, on one hand, they know that modernism is fruitless, that they are unfilled, they're void, they're empty. But on the other, they're looking towards Christianity, but they don't see an answer there either, because they don't see a foundation. They don't see, you know, it's kind of like in politics. It's like, okay, well, the liberals are wrong, but the Republicans aren't given a good answer either. They're not providing a detailed playbook for how to go about this either. Evil does absolutely exist, and this movie hit the nail on the head. I want to see if I can find because at the end of the movie there's a clip where the lead actor, you know, he gives this special announcement. I'm gonna see if I can find that. So it looks like it and taped it in the theaters. I'm not going to watch it too much, but the bottom line is, if you want, number one, you just need to support this movie, number one, and go and watch it. If you want good to prevail in the world, then you have to put your backing behind it. That's the bottom line. Your dollar, your energy, and your time, you need to put behind good. Like I said, at the end of the movie, this guy has an announcement. I'm not going to play too much of it because I don't want to get copyright stricken. But the bottom line is, if you would like to, what you can do is go on The Sound of Freedom and you can purchase a ticket for somebody else to be able to go watch it for free. That's what.
Well, welcome to the Tony Robbins podcast. This is a really important.
So here.
21st century slavery. This film was actually made 5 years ago. It wasn't released till now, with every roadblock that you can imagine being tossed in the way. And the names you see here on the screen took a stand. And they made sure this story could be shown.
Disney didn't want it shown.
And now all of you have the opportunity to continue telling this story. We don't have big studio money to market this movie, but we have you. And the baton has now been passed to you. You are the storytellers that can get people to come see this film in theaters. When you come to a theater, you experience movies differently. There is no pause button. There are no distractions. We all have an experience as we watch the film together as a community. It makes it possible for strong messages like this one to take root.
So it's basically him giving that message, and I will talk about that in a moment as I wrap this up. But if you want to contribute you can right here, I'm on the website. You can pay it forward, which is right here. Explore new projects, submit your project, angel funding. And this is the main thing, pay it forward. So just to wrap this up, this was an extremely, and it almost gives tears in my eyes to discuss this. By the way, I did not cry during the movie, but there were a few moments that it was very difficult not to. But
quit your job and you go and rescue those kids.
This movie was very difficult to make. And it took so much courage for these Hollywood actors to go through with making this movie. And you would be stunned at some of the stories I have read regarding how they stopped and how they tried to thwart this movie from getting out. Mel Gibson has discussed it. As he said, this movie was actually intended to be released 5 years ago. And if a movie like this it has pushback from being made, that should tell you all you need to know about who's really in power and what their intentions are at the top. And what message they are trying to put forth. Because make no mistake, the globalists, the elites at the top, what happens in this movie is exactly what happens in some of those circles. We've seen it with Epstein, many, 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 many more elites. So I think it is extremely brave that they made this movie, and I'm very happy that I ended up going to see it, and I supported it, and I, gave my little providing that I could. And I really do encourage you guys to see it. Overall, if I had to rate this movie by a scale that I would rate all movies, not taking into account budget and how difficult it was to make the movie, all of that, I'd probably give this movie a 3.5 out of 5. But which is definitely passable. I mean, guys, make no mistake, that is a passable, very, very much so passable score. Most of the nonsense that Netflix or Hulu or that they throw out is pure garbage. 1 out of 5, 0 out of, terrible, just terrible. It's terrible. I tell you, it's terrible. Now, if I take into account the roadblocks, the just how effing hard it was to make this movie, the roadblocks, the barriers, everything, I would give this movie a 4 out of 5. The lack of budget, I'd give it a 4 out of 5. And I'm telling you guys, and this is my final thought. This is why it is absolutely critical for Christians like myself to get onto YouTube, to get onto some of these mediums in which evil exists, so that we can provide the light and we can share, we can use these mediums. Because in and of itself, YouTube in and of itself is not evil. Instagram in and of itself is not evil. It's a tool. And the only thing that can be evil is the intentions behind how it's being used. And equally, we can make this tool a positive and share our message with as many people as we can. The light, the optimism, and the future for us having an emergence in the West. If there's any saving of the West of America, it's going to be by recapturing and having a major share in the market of the media market. Because right now it is overwhelmingly liberal and evil. And, you know, Angel is Mormon, which, you know, I have my own issues with Mormonism, but a lot of the movies that they have put forth are very positive. And I would, for the most part, I would want to support that as opposed to some of this satanic stuff that we see out in Hollywood right now. All right, guys, like, comment, share, subscribe. If you guys want to donate to my channel, I'll put the Cash App link in the description. Like I said, please go and check this movie out. If you would want to support this movie, you guys can pay for a ticket for somebody else, or you can just go watch the movie yourself. Please consider it. I highly enjoyed it. By the way, the theater was packed. I want everybody to know that the theater was packed. I mean, it was filled to the brim, and that was one of the things I wanted to mention. I know I said I was wrapping this up, but it was a delight to see the quiet majority that really exists in America. Anytime a movie like this is shown, it's always filled from brim to brim, because it's the silent majority that attends things like this. And it was a blessing to see. All right, guys, like, comment, share, subscribe. If you guys want to donate to the channel, you absolutely can. Support the movie, The Sound of Freedom. Hope you guys enjoyed the review. I will see you guys next time. DBAP, don't be a pussy willow. And facts or feelings, because your feelings still matter. Love you, Kings. See you guys next time. Peace.